Well, that's it. I mean, he is a man, he's a human, so it's his journey, it's his experiences in his life which causes him to make decisions which turn him into a vampire. And it's an interesting, fascinating story which most people wouldn't know about. And I guess that's what makes it different. It's the untold story. I mean, there's not one scene I play the same emotion, because he just constantly is transforming and holding on to an addiction that he's fighting. It was a real challenge, and I loved every minute of it.
It's an astonishing cast. I mean, Sarah and Charles, two very different but very equally talented performers. Can you talk about working with them?
I mean, it was a gift, treat. I mean, Sarah Gadon is a revelation. She's a fantastic actress and very easy to fall in love with. And Charles Dance is obviously a legend. And to work against him, and I still feel like I'm learning the ropes and watching this man just ease his way into a very complicated, difficult character. In 4 days, he nailed it, and it was a gift to watch. It was a little workshop for me. Well, I love them all. I really do. I love the Dracula movies, but it was difficult to refer to them because they're all about the Bram Stoker story, and this story is the precursor to the Bram Stoker story, 400 years before. So it gave me more freedom and a bit more license to tread fresh ground and tell the story of the man who inspired the whole vampire story in the first place. So.
Well, I play Morena. She's the princess of the kingdom. She's married to Vlad, and they have this beautiful romance together. A romance that they actually end up kind of fighting for throughout the film, and it's all about protecting their love and keeping their family together.
Dracula's the most iconic cinema character, but this is a film about Vlad the man. What do you think is the essence of that story?
Well, I think it's all about the humanity. It's about pulling apart the legend and looking at the man behind Dracula. And I think that's what attracted both Luke and I to the characters, because it's about real human connection. I think, Luke is an incredible actor. He is such a hard worker and a huge talent. It was really my first major studio film, and I feel very lucky that I had him to kind of help me navigate the whole landscape of this work environment. So I feel really lucky. I was a big fan of Bram Stoker's novel. I'm also a big fan of Gothic romance novels, so I love Jane Eyre and Frankenstein, and so that's really what drew me to this period. There's just something so kind of beautifully aesthetic about a Dracula film, and I was really happy to contribute to it. I recently wrapped a film called Girls' Night Out. That's about Princess Elizabeth and Princess Margaret out on VE night celebrating with the people.
Princess.
I know. Tough job. No, and then I did another film called A Girl King, and I'm about to start a film called The Ninth Life of Louis Drax.
It shows the side of Dracula that's never been seen before, and shows how he was a loving family man, as well as a vicious warrior. I think it's got that sort of viciousness but love to it as well, It's got the old Dracula tale and everything. It's just brilliant. My character, I play Ingress, and he's sort of he's the child figure, and he is the child, and he's been caught in the middle of this whole war, and it's all started because of him, basically. And he sort of has to step up and become a man in the film. Well, it was such an inspiration working with Luke and Sarah and Dermot and William Houston, and it was just amazing, and all the crew were amazing as well. It was just amazing experience.
Charles Dance, very familiar to Game of Thrones fans, a very menacing, scary man. What was he like when you met him in real life?
I've only met him a couple of times, but he's a very nice fella, and I've seen some clips of him in different shows, and I was really scared at meeting him because I was like, ooh, he seems scary, but he's actually such a nice man. I think there's a scene in a place called the Great Hall. I'm not sure if I can talk about that yet, but I can't wait to see that. Well, it's just a brilliant film, and it's a family film, but not for families. But it's very love-oriented, and it's just amazing.
So the film takes place in the 1460s Transylvania. This is the world of Vlad Tepes, as he was later known, Vlad the Impaler, and he is faced with the prospect of having to hand over 1,000 of the boys of the land to Mehmed to be used within Mehmed's army, and he refuses. And on top of that, he refused to hand over his son. And in order to be able to fight the Turks, he seeks this higher and darker power, and he makes a deal as such with a very, very dark force. And what it does is it bridges the gap between the historical facts of how Vlad Tepes was operating in the 1460s, and then this step into creating the Dracula legend set out by Bram Stoker. Yeah, I mean, coming like one of these kind of films as well, you know, it comes with a certain territory of you have to deliver on spectacle. So, but you're really dealing with one guy versus, you know, this entire army. So there's moments there like our Vlad versus 1000 sequence where we get to have a little bit of fun with Vlad beginning to use his powers of strength and speed and being able to, you know, transform into these this whirlwind of bats and being able to control bats. It's all the original things that were in the Dracula story, the Bram Stoker story. We just kind of took those powers and, you know, ran with them a little. I mean, he has, well, first of all, on a physical level, the presence, those eyes, those deep set eyes, the charm, the width. He's very, he has that quality of being able to be a great leader, and I mean, that's a great leader on and off of camera as well, having the empathy and just being, just it's a great, decent guy to be able to work with and great screencraft.
Of course, Game of Thrones fans know Charles Dance has the capacity to be a very menacing presence. Can you tell us a little bit about his role as the Master Vampire in this?
Yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you said it is. He's a very menacing presence that I don't really want to give away too much of the plot, but he's there to make a deal with Vlad.
Do you feel like you've still got more territory to explore, and could that integrate with the other Universal monster series?
I think absolutely. I mean, this takes place over 450 years before Bram Stoker's Dracula, so there's a whole period of this guy's life that you know, we're only touching on the one particular year in his life. So yeah, there's a huge amount I'd like to go and explore given the opportunity.
It totally hybridizes it. The writers started with Bram Stoker saying, okay, here we have Dracula in the 1800s, Victorian England. How did he decide to pick him, Vlad Tepes? Went back to the 1400s, and in the script they picked as much as they possibly could from history, and it sneaks in little ways if you know it, but it really is the story of Vlad Tepes. It's not the story of Victorian England Dracula. It's the story of how he got there. So it was a tall order, but the writers really wove everything they could into it. So
it's a fantastic cast led by Luke Evans. Can you talk a little bit about what fans can expect from him as Vlad, and of course Charles Dance as well?
Oh my God! Every time we've shown it, people go crazy. Luke Evans is Vlad. He is what made this movie possible, along with Sarah, Dominic, absolutely Gary. We had the best cast, but Luke worked every single day of this film, literally every day, and gave it his all. And that armor he's in is not that comfortable.
Tell us a bit about the effects, because obviously Framestore, I mean, fantastic.
Another partner, you look at like Gary, Luke, Sarah, it's all a partnership. Framestore was there from the very beginning. Gravity was not out yet. We kind of heard about it. We didn't know what it was. But their vision, you know, Kevin and Christian Mans, every step of the way, all the art you see here is all done by them. I mean, I'm so proud of the effects and the work that they did. It's beautiful.
Of course, I mean, this is an origin story. Do you feel that it's a franchise that could evolve, and particularly with the rich history of Universal monsters, do you feel that it could integrate into some of those other franchises?
We absolutely hope it does. And when you see the ending, you will see that it's teed up for that. So we hope that it does, but you know, you always just want to get one right. You know, so you hope, but you don't. You only focus on the first one. So, absolutely.
I mean, getting into the difference between Dracula and all that entails, and then Vlad Tepes, the ruler. I think this is the real sort of keynote that will separate this movie from any other vampire movie. I just been working actually in Romania over the summer, and I got to visit the actual locations that, like, you know, Sighișoara, his birthplace, Brașov, which was a stronghold, and then Târgoviște, which was kind of his seat of power. He was a feared leader, but by his people he was also a very loved leader. So I mean, that's forgotten, you know, like by the history books. So it's very interesting to see that transition from fact to myth, you know. In Dracula Untold, I play the role of Dumitru, and Dumitru is the best friend, confidant, sort of second in command to Vlad Tepes, played by the wonderful Luke Evans, our Dracula. And yeah, his position within that court would be advisor, would be protector, and just basically, when all that's said and done, friend. It was great. I think, Luke is sort of one of those actors that has come a similar path to myself. We've come up through sort of the theatre scene and then progressively into the screen scene. He just brings so much texture and analysis and just heart to his role. I do the same. So basically, when you combine those two kind of enthusiasms together, it works out fantastically well. And with Luke, it was effortless. It was seamless. It was a real joy. Gary has kind of come through as sort of he'd probably say himself, sort of an unconventional route, but we're all here together, and it was just great. I mean, I think with me, when I first met Gary and we talked about Dimitru and his place within this world, his clarity was really the kind of reassuring thing for me. Like, any director who just knows the one from the outset and follows through with that kind of drive is just really inspiring to be around, and sort of really helms a ship very well. Well, with regards to the visual sort of texture of Dracula Untold, it really is unique. I mean, I don't throw that word around lightly. I don't think audiences really have seen the style of Gary Shore or anything like it. And I think once people sit down and get into that old-fashioned cinematic experience of a bag of popcorn and a refreshment, people will be blown away by what they see and the angles and the sort of the various sort of textures and nuances of what's on offer.
Do you feel like it could be the birth of a franchise?
Oh, look, that's for people with bigger offices than I have to decide. So, but possibly, yeah. I mean, I think the Dracula Untold certainly lends itself to a very open-ended future. So, as to what happens next in that frame, we'll just have to see. Oh, any vampire fans need to see Dracula Untold. There's so many kind of amazing aspects in there. You haven't seen anything shot the way Gary Shore has shot this, so I hope you guys will take a chance and go out there.